Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Sex on the Table, the podcast aimed at creating a healthy blueprint for millennial relationships. I'm your host, MoAndra Johnson, marriage and family therapist, and joining me today is an amazing marriage and family therapist and my friend, Lauren Barney. Today we'll be discussing and debunking negative sexual narratives men may experience, as well as 7 different types of orgasms they can have. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm a little nervous.
Look, we're going to get through it. So today, guys, we are talking about sexual narratives that men experience. And if you listen to our female edition of our first podcast, it was all about female sexual narratives, trauma, and so forth. So today we'll be doing the guy edition. So both Lauren and I have, we see clients and we have people that have different sexual experiences, and we're both in the sex track. So Lauren's just going to share a little bit about what she experiences in her clinical practice. So Lauren, what do you think the biggest negative sexual narrative is for your clinical practice and what you've experienced?
I definitely think that, penis size has been a big thing that's come up in some of my male clients and kind of contributing to, sexual shame or feelings of sexual rejection, which definitely stems from a lot of different things. But I think it boils down to a lot of lack of, sexual education and getting a lot of your sexual education from porn, because it tends to have, people with fairly big penises, and that's not realistic. So it's having to kind of unlearn those narratives and unlearn that shame. So that comes with a whole nother set of different things that impact people's sexual self-schema. But I feel like that's definitely a big, starting issue,
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So let's get into that a little bit. I know we can, that's a whole nother episode, but let's talk about a lot of people identify with porn as their first encounter with what sex is supposed to look like or a sexual experience.
I think that the lack of information about what an average penis, size is also kind of troubling, but I think it's hard to obviously measure because people are going to self-report differently or maybe change it. But you see most men in a lot of studies are 5 to 7 inches. But is that what's reflected in porn?
Exactly.
Really problematic expectations of how sex is supposed to be, what people are supposed to look like. And yeah, it causes a lot of sexual shame and definitely impacts people's sexual narrative.
So for the guy that may have a smaller penis or is struggling with lasting, and what advice would you give him, or how would you comfort him?
I think that first and foremost, your biggest sexual organ is definitely your brain, right?
Right.
If your mind isn't in it, how can you expect your genitals to follow suit? So,
yes, Lauren, you can say that again. My goodness.
I think that putting your mind in a healthy place and coming to terms with this shame and confronting it is the first step to maintaining or beginning to gain control of, maintaining an erection. So I think that unlearning a lot of that unhelpful and problematic, sexual script is the first place to start.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. And another negative sex narrative that I've seen for males is, males being told little boys don't cry, or be a big boy, or toughen up. And that, translates into now these adult men that are afraid to be vulnerable or don't know how to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I think that a lot of men's first introduction to vulnerability is, unfortunately, sexuality. They're expected to perform and be on it, want it all the time. And, I've had men in my clinical caseload that can't, I guess, perform sexually with a woman that they're emotionally involved with, but they can on a hookup because it means less or there's less expectations. So I think that it's really hard for men to be vulnerable. And I think that therapy is a good place to start. If, if a man is coming into therapy, that's already a sign that, they're ready to kind of maybe be vulnerable and come in. But it's definitely really hard when society has all these views of how men are supposed to perform.
Yeah. And I definitely want to say, like, out there to the guys, I don't know, maybe Lauren, you could chime in with this, but, vulnerability doesn't mean weakness. That's even hotter.
Yeah.
So, like, get in tune with yourself, figure out what's going on internally with you and share it, because grown men do cry,
Yeah. And I think that if you, can't be vulnerable with your partner, sexuality is the only place you can be vulnerable with them. Where is your relationship going to be further down the line?
Exactly. So besides therapy, what is something that you could say, maybe as somebody that has a partner, how could they be more vulnerable with their partner?
Let's see. I mean, I think that trusting your partner is a good place to start. I think that's through kind of getting to know your partner opening up to you. That's kind of a big thing to, I guess, begin establishing that trust and knowing that there's safety. But I think just starting small, realistically, people don't expect you to come out with all of your deepest, darkest traumas from, the get-go. But,
yeah,
even small little like dreams and hopes and wishes of yours can be something so intimate and vulnerable, and you couldn't even realize it. So I don't think you should discount the small things either.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally
agree. How about
agree.
You?
Oh,
did I take you by surprise?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you took the good one. You took the good one. Okay, let's see. So I would say maybe that's definitely something that's good and practical. If you want an actual exercise, I know that research shows that staring into your partner's eyes for, I think, more than 7 seconds creates intimacy. So I would hold my partner's hand and stare at them or have a conversation. It could be light, or, you guys can go deep, but that's how you can establish intimacy and be more vulnerable as well.
Yeah. I forgot you brought that up in class one day. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's my favorite thing to do with couples, because, people don't talk nowadays. So.
Yeah. And that kind of builds on that reflective listening skill that couples come in and kind of begin to, I guess, communicate more efficiently as well.
Okay, Lauren, so let's talk about, we talked a little bit about porn, but I'm thinking about porn shame. So being someone who really likes to watch porn, or, that's what you do, and then just society telling you, like, that it's not good to watch too much porn, or too much masturbation is not good for you.
Yeah. I think that a lot of shame around masturbation truly comes from monogamy. I don't know if that's super radical of me, but
let's go there.
I think that when society shifted to this monogamous, you should only have one love your whole life. You can't look at someone else outside of the relationship, that it started to build up that shame. I've had definitely couples in my clinical practice that, cheating and infidelity is completely up to, the person, what they consider it to be, and is completely subjective. But, some people do consider watching porn or masturbating to someone outside of the relationship as, an infidelity or betrayal. Yeah. So I think it's definitely like a really hard fine line to, walk on. But I think that establishing those boundaries early on in a relationship can be really helpful, because masturbation isn't something that you should be ashamed of. And I think that mutual masturbation between partners can be really great in getting to know your partner's body too. So right. I personally think porn is really great and really awesome, and same with masturbation, but definitely in moderation. And I think it's a conversation that needs to be had in the beginning of a relationship to know what someone's expectations are, because what you may consider normal and healthy, your partner may not view in the same way.
Yeah, exactly. And I always tell my couples, like, expectations that you put on your partner can be bound to fail because that is not something that was discussed, but more so you're putting that on them. So how can they live up to that? Whereas, like you said, when you talk about the things that you expect, or how you guys define different important parts of a relationship, you're on more so on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But porn's definitely, interesting. I think that there's a very gendered difference view of porn in general.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's probably harder out here for our men. You feel me?
Yeah, we feel for y'all out here. We do. Okay, and so let's see. Also with the porn shaming and just shame and guilt around sexuality in general, I want to talk about my guys that are out there that feel so much shame and guilt around not having a high sex drive or not being as sexual. And the actual disorder is called male hypoactive sexual disorder. But that just basically means that you have a low sex drive. And it's proceeded for about, 6 months, Lauren?
Yeah, it's about 6 months.
Yeah. So unfortunately, like, society, depicts men as being overly sexual or having high sex drive. So when this is a disorder that you struggle with, it's hard because of all the things that society tells you you're supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it is even alarming if someone doesn't have, as many sexual fantasies or any at all anymore, and doesn't even feel the desire to masturbate. It doesn't even, have to be partnered sex, which is kind of a big distinguish, I guess, as well. So I could see how it definitely would be alarming.
Yeah. And also with that, erectile dysfunction is another thing that often brings guys shame and guilt, because it seems like your body's betraying you, right? Or you don't really know what's going on. And you've been tasked with, like, performing. So that could be a lot of pressure too.
Definitely.
Okay, guys, so it's time to get into part 2. This is the fun part. So we're going to talk about all the orgasms that guys can have, and, like, tips, tricks, or whatever comes to mind when we hear that orgasm. So you ready, Lauren?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so the first one is, of course, intercourse. And oftentimes, people, if you're not like a sexual explorer, you're not really into your sexuality, there'll be like these main sexual positions that you can get into, right? And like women have so many more looking online, research articles of how they can achieve an orgasm, and what positions can be paired with better orgasms. And for guys with intercourse, the repertoire is not that deep, right? But it's definitely harder if you may have like a smaller penis size, or you may have, like you and your partner have different body sizes, to figure out what positions to get into.
Yeah, definitely. Like, let's talk about shower sex. That does not work for everyone. I know that my partner is literally 6'3" and I'm 5'0", and it's just literally physically impossible.
Yeah, that is. And then, he has to like bend down and his knees hurt. Yeah, and that's a struggle.
Pleasant. So, like, just knowing that not every sex position is going to work for you or your partner, and like knowing that one sex position that worked really great with one sexual partner isn't going to have the same effect with another. Like, I think that's a good place to like start,
And then also just being realistic with it. Like, I think sex is more fun when you and your partner are honest. And if it isn't a one night stand or like a quick hookup, you're able to have more communication with that partner. So like figuring out like what positions they like, what works good for them, like, and then going from there.
Yeah, I think that, in the beginning of being in a relationship, you kind of stick to those same few positions that seem really safe. And, it's always fun to explore. And if you build that trust and intimacy with someone, like, that could be a really fun thing to just go online and look up quirky different sex positions that maybe aren't great at all, but it's fun, and you get to know your partner's body differently. I mean, there's this one called the wheelbarrow that I tried once. Insane. But like, obviously was never gonna work, but I had so much fun while doing it. Like, I was just laughing my ass off. So yeah, I think that exploring is fun.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And if you guys need any ideas on positions for you and your partner to try, You can go follow us on Sex on the Table _Sex on the
Yeah.
Table on Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah,
We
you
have a lot of
stay
interesting
posting
things for
those
you
good
guys.
graphics. Yes.
Yes, of course. You know, graphics are the best. You got to know how you're going to get into things like this wheelbarrow. So the second orgasm is manual orgasm. And that's just basically what we call a hand job. Guys have sensation all through their shaft.
We kind of talked about this before, but foreskin adds a whole nother element to like a
Let's get
manual
into
stimulation.
that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I find that you don't have to use as much lubrication because it's kind of naturally that way already. And
Okay.
obviously, like one should always focus on the head, let's be real, but
Right.
definitely always lube for our own for our circumcised men as well.
Yeah. Agreed. Slip and slide is always fun, guys. So why not? Okay. And the next orgasm that guys could have is a orgasm from oral stimulation. A little tip or trick would be fruit play. Earlier, you know, Lauren, me and you were talking about oranges and grapes. So, like, the infamous grapefruit is a good technique. You cut off both ends of the grapefruit, and you kind of cut off the center of the circle, and you use that as like a probing piece. So it's supposed to feel like a vagina. And you could use your mouth too, and like on top of the grapefruit and go up and down with it. But if Lauren had to do it, would you say an orange because you hate grapefruits?
Yes, grapefruit is so disgusting. Low tier quality fruit, and I stand by that.
Yeah, so guys, ask your partner to grapefruit you if you've never had it, or orange you. Some people like it. Just be careful about getting the citrus in you. And also, how do you tell if, let's say, your partner gives horrible head, and you really like oral stimulation? How do you think you can constructively tell your partner?
Yeah, I think that just opening things up. Obviously, you don't just come out to your partner like that was literally awful.
Yes,
But
please don't do it, guys. Please.
but easing into it, like talking about what makes you feel good, obviously is like step number one. Like, hi, this is the way I like to be touched. Maybe showing your partner how you like to be stroked in the middle of, head, or telling your partner if you do like, your scrotum played with, or if, you don't want teeth, you do want teeth. I don't know who really wants teeth, but some people are into that. So
people are into it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that being able to share past sexual relationships with your partner is really important because, you learn what you like and you don't like through trial and error.
I definitely think a big part of sex is communication.
Yeah.
I think sex gets so much better, even if you guys have bomb chemistry from the beginning, when you communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Lauren, in our last episode of the female edition, I talked about anal stimulation as a female orgasm. It's also as a way for females to receive orgasms. It's also a way for guys to receive orgasms, but it's so more taboo. So more taboo. And I think I said last time, like, anal sex is what oral sex used to be, but with guys, we're still like 20 years behind.
Yeah, don't even get me started. You know that I'm very
Lauren.
passionate about this subject. Listen, I want all my ladies to peg. We are pegging in 2020, but that's besides the point. So,
okay.
Let's talk about, shame around prostate stimulation and, that whole narrative that men have internalized that, like, you can't get prostate stimulation unless you're gay. That's something that gay men do. I'm not gay, therefore you're not letting me I'm not letting you touch my ass. Like, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that sex could be, straight, gay, all that in between. I think that
there's no such thing as gay sex.
Yeah, I think that everyone can enjoy a giant repertoire of sex, and you never know until you try it, and you shouldn't yuck other people's yums, but having those inherent negative connotations about anal sex or any sort of anal play is just kind of depriving yourself of a pleasure that you don't even know if you could have. So I just want men to unlearn that. That's like
yes.
Yeah. that's frustrating because I
Yeah.
feel it.
It's like if you, Lauren, if you had like the key to like the 26th wonder of the world, but you never wanted to go behind the door.
Yeah, exactly. I think that men may be afraid to ask for that also out of the fear of,
Yeah.
you know, appearing gay or being called gay by, you know, maybe the women that they are having sex with if they are, you know, having straight sex. Like,
Right.
um, how can you, you know, ask for something that you really want if there are all these barriers or negative connotations? So I think just like giving permission and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Allowing space.
yeah, like ladies, you could, you know, step up and say, hey, like I heard that you get pleasure from, you know, prostate stimulation. Is that anything you've ever been interested in or wanted to try? And just opening up that dialogue because maybe your man doesn't want to say that.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
okay, so if you are a guy that's afraid of it, or you're folding into this social narrative, or you're a female that wants to pleasure your guy more, but you're not sure how to act, you guys can always start with external prostate massaging. And that's just adding pressure to the perineum, the space between the anus and the scrotum. And you could like doorbell it, or just like add pressure. And if this is your first time trying it out, talk through it with the guy that's experiencing the anal stimulation and see what he likes, see what he's feeling. Is that a good pressure? Is that not a good pressure? And then also lube, 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 lube. You
In
cannot have
all the
anal sex.
sexuality. Yes, lube is essential.
Essential to life. It's like water, okay? Life is to water as lube is to sex, literally. So you need lube for this anal play. Do not try without. You will hurt yourself. And maybe beyond one of the episodes of sex, send me to the ER. So we don't want to do that. So remember the lube, okay? Also you can try another step from external prostate massaging is rimming. Um, if you can imagine the anus and you just like circling like maybe a rose petal or like a flower around it and just like looping, that feels really well, really good as well. Typically to guys, and then or if you can insert like peekaboo action while like going around the anus, that works good as well. Do you have any more tips, Lauren?
Kind of with rimming, I've noticed that a lot of guys feel really anxious about kind of anal play and things like that because of
Mm-hmm.
hair. And I just want to
Right.
normalize that like body hair is natural, you know, like
Thank you,
it's a
Lauren.
protective barrier, it's there for you. Like have a conversation about that, but I don't think that hair is something that you should be ashamed of. So, yeah, that's like my main spiel about rimming.
Okay. And overall, when it comes to sexuality, like there's so many negative skews, right? And we're just
Mhm.
trying to, like, who doesn't want to have bomb sex? Like, who doesn't want to have greater sex? So with
Mhm.
breaking these negative narratives, as men or women, you're able to embody sexuality more, explore yourself more, feel open, and kind of not have that pressure or guilt of what people have put you in this box to think about sexuality.
Yeah, I think that externalizing all these negative narratives would make everyone so much more free, but obviously it's not
Yes.
that easy.
We're going to get there. Hopefully one day. We're slowly an uphill battle.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Okay, so Lauren, to close out, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, so we usually do to end this the session, we'll read a letter from a listener, or we'll give like a charge question. So what is
Okay.
the question that you would charge all the guys out there that are listening to this podcast to do after listening to this, whether it be about expanding sexuality or whatever the case is?
Is this like my major takeaway that I would want them to have? Is that what you're asking? Am I?
Yes, ma'am.
Um, okay. That is putting me on the spot.
No,
Let's
take your
see.
time.
Um, I think that men can also benefit from feminism. I think if it's
Mhm.
never been more apparent than in this episode that, you know, we all live under these gendered stereotypes that we need to, you know, act and perform in a certain way, especially when it comes to sexuality. And I want everyone to be liberated. I want
Right.
everyone to own their sexuality. So, I want us to all collectively as a society start to unlearn these problematic things. Like, penis size makes you a desirable partner, or, that you aren't worthy of love because you watch porn, or, things like that. I think that everyone has their own shit, and starting to unpack it and being vulnerable is the first place to start. So I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, you're already starting.
Ooh. Thank you, Lauren. That was good. I'm not even going to add anything to that. That summed it up. That was perfect. So thank you guys so much for listening. Of course. And thank you for being on here. You have to come back. We're going to do something else sooner or later. All we got is time with this COVID. So, but we appreciate you, Lauren.
Thank you.
In the next episode, we're going to continue to create a blueprint for healthy millennial relationships. Thank you for listening to us, and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram @_sex on the table.